Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Blair Nickel with FriendApp, and welcome to the FriendApp Franchising General Webinar, which is mainly an informational webinar to help you learn about business and franchise ownership, but more importantly, a little bit more about FriendApp, myself, how to find the franchise that is right for you, all the resources that are available to you to help you make a safe and wise decision, as well as the proper research process. So you can kind of close this window of risk as much as possible, and so you know what's ahead of you as you embark down this path. This is a picture of my family and I, a little bit about me. I've been in franchising for the vast majority of my professional career. I've been doing it for about 25 plus years. I've owned multiple franchises because a lot of people ask, hey, do you own franchises yourself? And the answer is yes. Not only am I the principal FriendApp for the Pacific Northwest and Southern California and been helping clients purchase franchises for, like I said, about 20 plus years. I'm also the vice chairman of the board, one of the principal owners of the parent company of FriendApp. So been in franchising, like I said, since the mid 80s. It really started with my father, my brother, and I. We started off in what was called Mailbox Etc. at the time down in the San Diego, Southern California area. We were also the master franchisees for Mailbox Etc. at the time. And we sold the company to UPS along with the other master franchisees. And so today you see it as the UPS store. And so we sold that back in 1997 to UPS. And that's when I got involved with FriendApp. And like I mentioned earlier, I have probably helped hundreds or into the thousands of people purchase a franchise. And our company as a whole, because we have an office in just about every major city throughout North America, as well as overseas, we have helped hundreds of thousands of people go from either an employee or in some type of career transition into business and franchise ownership. So today we're going to talk about why business ownership, what are the options for getting into business, the risks and rewards of business ownership. In other words, why do people do this? Why do people not do this? Then we're going to get into some of the myths and realities of franchising. And then we're going to kind of get into the guts of this webinar, which is how do you find and identify the business or franchise that is right for you? And also how to build your business personal model. This webinar should last about 60 minutes or so. And if you should have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to me directly. My direct cell phone number is area code 760-473-4342. And you'll see that at the end of this presentation as well. So a little bit more about FriendApp. We've been around for a little over 30 years. Like I said, we are an international company. We have offices throughout North America and overseas. We are a free service to our clients. We are not paid by you. We are paid by the franchisors who are out there. So we're kind of the matchmaker in between. So as you are embarking down this path to see, hey, one, is business or franchise ownership right for me? And if so, what franchise are going to be the best fit for you? The franchisors are doing the same thing on their end. They're trying to find the people that are the right franchisees for their business systems. And so again, we are the matchmaker in between to make that happen. We are compensated by the franchisors. We're actually paid out of the franchise fees that you pay to the franchisor. In addition to us being a free service to you though, there are some other resources that you should be aware of. So as you can see on the screen, there's what's called SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. These are retired business owners, retired accountants, bankers, CPAs, attorneys. And their job is basically, they want to give back to the community. And their way of giving back to the community is to help people who are wanting to get into business or who are in business. And so they will share their vast expertise within their previous fields to help you in those fields. There's also what's called the Small Business Development Centers. And just about every major city has an SBDC office nearby. Sometimes there's multiple offices. And this is the government's arm to help you get into business, to help support you once you're in business. Your local SBDC office is a great resource. They will have business libraries there for you. They will have counselors there that you can meet with. They have workshops that they do as well on various aspects of business ownership. And again, most of their services are free. We do see if they do charge for some of their workshops that they put on. SCORE kind of does the same thing. But again, we highly suggest you take advantage of these resources. So again, our job is to help match you up with the business or franchise that best fits your needs, and all of these services are free to you. So what we do is we really educate our prospects on opportunities in business ownership. Usually our clients will look at multiple companies at any given point in time. Usually kind of the magical number is around 3 different franchises. That way it allows you to kind of compare and contrast businesses as you embark down this path. But we also pre-screen these franchisors. So we do not work with every franchisor out there. Last count, there was right around 4,000 different franchisors out there. Any given point in time, we work with about 150 to around 200 different franchises. So by no means that all the franchises that are out there. So we carefully pre-screen the franchisors that we work with. We try to choose a handful that we feel are the better ones within each sector. We do the same research that you will do. And if we like what we see, after talking to the franchisor, after reading through their disclosure documents, after really talking to a number of their franchisees to make sure this franchisor is doing well, then it will be a company that we will have our clients take a look at. As well as we continue to screen these companies as the years go by to make sure our clients are happy and to make sure the franchisor is still performing well. Know that we do not sell franchises. Our job is to help coach you, match you, really guide you through this process so you can make a safe and wise decision. Ultimately, it's up to you whether it's the franchise that you really want to buy. So we like to start off this workshop with this. Imagine if you were a successful business owner. How would your life be different? One of the first questions we like to ask our clients is, why are you doing this? Why are you considering getting into business ownership? Because you got to remember, most people are born not to do this, actually. Usually most people are raised to go to school, get good grades, land a job, stay in that job for as long as possible, put away for retirement, retire and have some fun, and that's about it. So we're talking about doing something totally different. Most people admire business owners. Most people have always wanted to be a business owner, but just never took the first step or kind of the guts to do this. And so what we really want to know is, why are you really considering doing this? And when we ask that question, these are usually the answers that start to come up. And as you're looking at this screen, you're actually looking at this in ranking order of why, or really what we hear from our clients as to why they really embark down this path and what they really want out of it. So yet most people choose to work for somebody else. So even though this was their dream and their goal and they've always wanted to do this, really the path of least resistance for them is to go back into a corporate world type of job. And the reason is that that's what they know. And so therefore it seems to be less risk. So the number one thing that stops people from going into business ownership is the first bullet point there, which is risk. If they feel that a job might be safer than the business, or hey, maybe they're worried about the economy, and so they want to wait for the economy to be better. Or do they have the money, knowledge, and skill sets to start and run a business? But by far and away, the number one reason that stops people from doing this is risk. So our whole goal as we work with our clients, and hopefully as you'll learn through this webinar, is to help you close this window of risk as much as possible so you can make a safe and wise decision. So is going to work for someone else safe? Well, sure, short term it is. When you land a job, you most likely get a paycheck in the next week or two. The question is, how long will that job last? Can you be sure your job is safe? Really, does your performance determine your success and security within a job? And can you meet your long-term financial goals of security and retirement with the job? Most people say no. So as you can see in that graph to the left, as time goes on, usually the risk of the job goes up. So the typical job that you'll hear from career coaches, outplacement agencies, whatever the case may be, typical job right now lasts around 3 to 4 years. Now, if you compare that to business ownership, yes, business ownership can be scary, but if it works really, really well. No one can take it away from you. You can't be downsized, transferred, or fired. You can grow the business as small or as big as you want. And the longer you own the business, the safer it becomes. So if you look at that risk in time graph over on the left-hand side, notice that it's the exact opposite of what we were looking at in the previous slide of the job. So again, in the job, it's very low risk up front, that you typically don't get what you want long-term. In a business, typically the greatest risk is in the beginning. As the business matures, the risk of the business goes down. So there's a few things that I want you to understand as you consider embarking down this path is that in business ownership, you have to be able to accept that risk. You have to be able to accept giving up something up front to get what you want long term. As compared to a job, you typically don't give anything up front, but then again, you don't really get what you want long term. Now, it doesn't mean that this option is totally risk-free. If going into business was risk-free, look, there would be lines down the street of people wanting to work with us. The unfortunate part about business ownership is that there is still risk. But like I said, what we're trying to do for you today is try to show you how to close this window of risk as much as possible so you can make a safe and wise decision. So you've been playing by the rules of corporate America, but really the rules have changed and they're going to continue to change. The days of having a job for decades on end and getting that gold watch at the end really don't exist anymore. So income security is the future, and really job security is not there. It's a thing of the past. So what about if you're concerned about how the economy can impact your business? Are there businesses out there that tend to be more recession resistant than others? And the answer is yes. What we did is we went back to our clients who have been in business, for many, many years, and we wanted to see, hey, which industries are the ones where they did just fine through economic recessions, whether it be the Great Recession or whatever the case may be. So as you can see, these are all businesses that you're probably familiar with, or at least industries that you're familiar with, and they've done just fine through those economic conditions. So if you decide that you're going to go into business, there's really three different options for going into business. You can start a business from scratch, you can buy an existing business, or you can buy a franchise. So let's look at the pros and cons of each methodology. So starting a business from scratch, it is the way every single business on this planet started. My hat is off to the people that did it this way, because the advantages are you have full control. You get to make all the decisions. You have tremendous room for creativity. You get to determine the rules. There can be a tremendous upside, and you can possibly build the business from your passion. The disadvantages is that you have to create everything. You got to figure out how you're going to build this business. What are you going to name it? How are you going to grow it? What's the accounting systems that are going to use? How are you going to sell your services? How are you going to price your services? So therefore, there's limited financial opportunities, usually very slow ramp up time, and therefore a very high failure rate. And so it's very hard to start a business from scratch and actually end up succeeding. So your second option is to buy an existing business. And quite honestly, buying an existing business is the safest way to go into business. The unfortunate part about buying an existing business is that most businesses, you and I never even heard that the business was for sale in the first place, because about 2/3 of all businesses sell to a friend, family, or an acquaintance. You and I just, like I said, never even knew the business was for sale. But if you can find an existing business that's for sale, you can look at its cash flow, you can look at its goodwill, its actual financial results. There's this customer base, the employees are there, the system is in place. It's a tangible asset that you can look at right now and see how it's performing right now. So it takes a lot of that guessing work out. The disadvantages is what's the true cash flow of the business? What should this business really sell for? Is there going to get proper training and support from the current owner? And really, why is the seller really selling? If it's a great business, wouldn't they just hold on to it? Or, hey, are they really ready for retirement, or maybe have some type of family need? Are the employees going to stay around? So there's a lot of disadvantages. Again, finding existing businesses that are for sale for good reasons are very, very hard to find. Trust me, when we find them within our industry and we feel it's a good business and it matches the profile of what our clients are looking for, we absolutely have our clients look at existing businesses if they're around. If you're wondering about a website that you can look at to see which existing businesses are for sale, I would go to bizbuysell.com. That's bizbuysell.com. Usually the comment that I hear from our clients is that, hey, it may be the biggest website out there, but there's just a lot of junk out there that's for sale. And I tend to agree. So the third option of going into business is to buy a franchise. Buying a franchise is like receiving a recipe or a cookbook on how to run a specific business. So It's really designed for people who want to go into business, but also want help support of going into business. So most of our clients have never owned a business before, so therefore they think and feel that franchising is the right business methodology for them to go into business. Because you can get, there's a tremendous amount of advantages. You can get name recognition. There is a proven business system on how to run it. So therefore, you're going to get ongoing training and initial training and support. The failure rates of starting a franchise are much lower compared to starting a business from scratch. There are all different types of cost models. There's all kinds of different financing options we'll discuss. There is disclosure. And what I mean by disclosure is franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. And so every franchisor is mandated by the Federal Trade Commission to provide to you what's called a franchise disclosure document. And we'll go into this here in a little bit. As well as the franchise family. And what I mean by that is that not only are you trying to run your franchise, but so are all your fellow franchisees within the same franchise system. And what you'll find is that it's really one big family. Everybody's there to help and support each other because everybody wants everyone to succeed within the particular franchise that you're looking at. Now, the disadvantages within franchising is that not every industry is franchisable. There is a structured operating system. So what I mean by that is, look, if you're a true entrepreneur, franchising is probably not right for you. Franchising is all about taking a structured operating system, basically a recipe of how to run the business, and duplicating it time and time and time again. So if you're good at following systems, you're good at following operations. Yes, some franchisors are more malleable than others. In other words, hey, if you got some different ideas, they'll definitely listen to them. And a lot of the best ideas in franchising come from franchisees. There might be territory restrictions. Generally, you can only sell the products and systems of the franchisor that you're looking at. But probably the main con that most people look at within franchising is the ongoing royalty payments. So the way these franchisors make their money is not only is there an initial franchise fee that you pay the franchisor in the beginning, but you will also pay the franchisor some type of ongoing royalty. Quite often, this is a percentage of sales. It's usually around 5 to 7% of gross sales goes to the franchisor on a monthly basis. And so there is an ongoing cost. So the question is, hey, are you better off paying that royalty and going with this franchise and getting all the advantage of the franchise compared to trying to start a similar business or any type of business on your own? When you talk to most franchisees, including myself, who's been in franchising for decades, most franchisees will say, hey, it's more than worthwhile, and I probably wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the franchisor. So basically, a franchise is a license to use the name, trademarks, and business systems of a particular franchise in exchange for an initial franchise fee and some type of ongoing royalty, as I just mentioned. As I also just mentioned, franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So every franchisor has what's called an FDD, which stands for Franchise Disclosure Document. These franchise disclosure documents are usually about an inch thick. They're not the funnest reading material in the world, but it is very crucial information that you'll want to get from the franchisor. So usually a franchisor will provide to you their franchise disclosure document after they've talked to you a couple of times. They feel that you're a serious candidate. They feel that, hey, yes, you are a potential good fit for the franchise, as well as you're saying the same thing on your end, that you're interested in the franchise, you want to continue learning more, and that, you're like I said, you're pretty serious. So the franchise disclosure document, which is a document that eventually is one of the very last steps in our research process, you're going to want to have it reviewed by a franchise attorney. But this document is going to tell you how long has this franchise been in business. What's the background of the officers of the company, as well as the background of the company? Are there any bankruptcies or litigation that you need to be aware of? So in other words, if you saw a bunch of franchisees suing the franchisor, that might be a bit of a yellow or red flag for you. So that has to be disclosed to you. What is the breakdown of the total cost or investment of the franchise? So if the franchisor tells you, hey, this business costs $200,000, great. What does that $200,000 go towards? What is the actual franchise agreement that their franchisees signed? So the actual franchise agreement, contract, a sample of it is given to you within that franchise disclosure document. What are your rights? What are their rights? Do you get a protected territory, or does the franchisor have the right to place another location right down the street from you? Obviously, we suggest you get a protected territory. You'll see this next item highlighted. They will give you a list of all their current franchisees and past franchisees, both those that have sold and those that have closed their doors. They have to give you a list of all their names, address, and phone numbers broken down by state. And this is the most important information that you can find, because you can look at the performance of the franchise within the particular state that you're in. And which I'll share with you later, you're going to want to talk to these franchisees. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Earnings claim or financial representations, where the franchisor will tell you in some shape or form what's the financial results of their franchisees. Now, usually this is one of the number one questions that people want to have answered right off the bat. You know, how much money can I make? So franchisors provide earnings claims or financial representations in all types of various formats. We're seeing more and more franchisors these days provide some type of earnings claim within their disclosure documents, so they know that's really what you're trying to get at. They'll give you audited financial statements on the company so you can make sure it's safe and sound financially. What's the management policy for running the business? Also, how long does this agreement stay in place? How do you sell it? How do you renew it? How do you terminate it? All that is within this document. So why are the current and past franchisees so important? Well, this is where you're going to spend most of your time in this due diligence and research process. So after about a few weeks in the process, after you read through the disclosure document, you've had a few conversations with the franchisor, you're going to have the ability to talk to these franchisees. Remember, you're given a list of all of them. So our suggestion is that you talk to at least a half a dozen to a dozen different franchisees. Now, this is really cool because you're able to do unbiased research at this point, which is not true with an independent business owner. Only a franchising allows you this extensive research process of utilizing past results of actual franchisees who were once in your shoes, and they will share with you their experience, what it's like, how they would do it again, would they do it again, how's the training, how's the support, what it costs for them to get into business, how would they reinvest in the business. Basically, all the questions that you want to have answered, these franchisees within these particular systems will sit down with you, chat with you over the phone, whatever the case may be. Yes, you will find some franchisees that are more open than others. So that's why we're going to have you talk to a bunch. We also want you to talk to some franchisees that are doing well, maybe one or two that are having a tougher time than others. Make sure you're not like them. Make sure you're like the franchisees that are doing well. They have similar demographics and background and skill sets that you have, and to make sure you can do what they have done and you would be happy with that type of result to meet your goals and your criteria of your business model. Time and time again, people ask me, hey, Blair, what's kind of the latest, greatest trend within franchising? What's the latest and greatest franchise? Well, it's really not a particular franchise. It's more of a segment of franchising that is the latest and greatest. And it's what we call semi-absentee ownership. I would say over half of our clients, maybe closer to 60 to 70%, are pursuing what we call semi-absentee business models. In other words, these are franchises that are designed for you not to have to be there all the time. They are designed for you to either go have another job, already have full-time employment. Maybe you want to diversify your portfolio, or maybe create a safety net because you know your job isn't going to last forever. Great, you can get a business up and going on the side, and when you're ready to leave that job or when you're asked to leave the job, you can go focus on your business. So the goal is to become a franchise owner, work with a manager who runs the day-to-day operations while you are overseeing the business. So mainly your job as the owner of a semi-absentee franchise is going to be overseeing the marketing, overseeing the books and records, overseeing the strategic plan of the business, and your manager is going to actually implement most of that. So we actually do have webinars on semi-absentee franchise ownership, as well as specific semi-absentee franchises. So if you think this is something that might be a fit for you, definitely talk to us, and we can make it part of your business model. But like I said, it is probably the latest, greatest segment. It's been going on for about 5 or so years, and we expect it to continue as there's some really neat business models within semi-absentee. So they're typically slightly higher investments. Generally, the semi-absentee franchise will require a location. They are manager run, so your manager is overseeing the day-to-day operations. They usually require a little bit more advertising dollars. You'll see them all kinds of different segments. Now, what I will tell you about semi-absentee franchise is that they will typically land in sectors that you would say I really don't have an interest in that sector. That's okay. If you talk to these franchisees within these semi-absentee sectors, they typically had no experience within that particular sector or industry, and they don't really want to have experience. You'll see very high-powered executives own these types of franchises. And when you ask them, why did you buy the franchise? They'll say, hey, look, I didn't buy the franchise for what the business does. I bought the business for what the business gets me. It's a methodology or a plan to get me to my personal and financial goals of what I want in the future. That's why they purchase these franchises. So you get to keep your job or go get a job. Owners typically working after hours, typically about 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 20 hours per week in the beginning. I would say generally they are front loaded as far as hours. So there'll be a lot of hours up front, and then you're able to back away pretty quickly. A lot of these franchises are able to monitor remotely. In other words, their software systems are so good, you can literally be sitting on a beach in Hawaii with your iPhone or iPad or laptop, looking at the up-to-the-minute operations and financial results of the franchise that you own. And you can grow and invest to hedge against economic changes as well. So what are some of the myths associated with franchising? Well, myth number one, hey, it's only fast food and retail. So when I give this workshop to a live audience, which we do quite often, whether it be an outplacement firm or to the Small Business Administration or to banks or attorneys, whatever the case may be, I always ask the crowd to, hey, just start naming franchises to me. And when I ask the crowd to do that, typically they'll be able to answer about maybe half a dozen to a dozen different franchises. And very often the common denominator behind those franchises that they'll fall within fast food and retail. So literally think to yourself right now, start thinking of actual names of franchises. My guess is they're going to fall within fast food and retail. What I want you to know is that there are thousands of franchises. So like I said, typically any given group can name about 6 to 12. Last count, there was somewhere between 3,600 and 4,000 different franchise companies in more than 90 different industries with close to 1 million different operating units out there. So there are all kinds of different categories. So like I said, just don't think it's fast food and retail. There's business services, automotive, commercial, personal services, business to business, light industrial, retail, products, services, all kinds. Quite often what we hear from our clients is that if they purchase a franchise, the franchise they end up purchasing, we usually will hear from them that it ends up being a business that they never even thought of, and that if they saw the business on a list, they probably would have passed right by it if they were trying to do this on their own. Myth number two, franchise succeed because of the quality of the product. Quite often it's not the case. What franchisors are very good at are their systems. They're very good at marketing, sales, operations, and accounting. Quite often their actual product is okay. Now we are seeing this change a little bit, but what I mean by this is don't focus so much on the product. Your customers have to believe in the product. You have to believe in the business system. Remember, you're purchasing the business. Your customers are purchasing the product. So you have to be a believer in these four bullet points right here, because that's ultimately what you're buying here. Myth number three, franchise or successful franchise emerge in new industries with no new competitors. So time and time again, there's not a day in my life where somebody off the street or somebody, whether it be a friend, family, relative, professional acquaintance, you name it, will ask me, hey, Blair, what's the latest, greatest franchise? Typically, franchise come from what we call a consolidation. In other words, there might be lots of independents doing it already, but the franchisor has found a better way of doing it. So if you go back to that logo that we saw a couple slides ago with the McDonald's, I'm pretty sure the hamburgers were being made prior to McDonald's getting involved in it. Okay, I'm pretty sure haircuts were happening before Great Clips, Supercuts, Sport Clips got involved within the industry. These companies just found a better way of doing it, and they're able to duplicate it time and time again, and therefore gobble up market share. So the competition is good. It shows there's market for the product or service. So like I said, you'll see lots of independents doing it, but the franchisors do not enter segments where there is no competition. They'll enter segments where there are competition, but like I said, they will find a better way of doing it and then dominate it. Myth number four, franchises are expensive. typically what you'll find and what you see here is the percentage of franchises that fall within those total investment ranges. I would say right now, our average client is spending around $200,000 on their franchise. Some spend way more, some spend way less, but on average, they're probably spending around $200,000. What I want you to know, though, is that there is no correlation between the cost of the franchise and the potential return. Now, this is very contrary to what most people believe or way that they've been raised or what they believe as far as investing. So in franchising, there is no correlation. So this is a good thing. It means that you don't have to spend a lot of money if one of your goals is to make a lot of money. Okay. So what I usually tell my clients is just trust me, it holds true. Like I said, you're going to be looking at multiple different franchises as you go down this path. So you're comparing, contrasting. You might want to look at one that kind of stretches your budget, maybe one that's right within your budget, maybe one that's well within your budget. And quite often you'll find the one that's well within your budget makes just as much money, maybe even more than the one that stretches your budget. Now, let's keep using the example. Let's say that you're an average client and you're looking at a total investment around $200,000. So typically around 25 to 30%, so about $50,000 to $60,000 will be your investment, so your money, and then you can get the financing for the remaining 70 to 75%, so long as you have good credit ratings, got a good business plan, you're looking at a franchisor that's on the SBA registry, but there are other ways to finance a franchise. So you could obviously write a check for it out of personal savings, maybe friends, relatives, or partner. We have some clients still do home equity lines to finance their business, maybe seller financing or resale. There's also, the general small business loans. But this last bullet point, the 401k IRA, what I want you to know, it doesn't mean that you have to, that it is an option. You are allowed via the ERISA Act of 1974, which is through the IRS. The IRS will allow you to use retirement funds to fund your business without early withdrawal fees and without penalties. So long as that money is being used for a business, you can be your own bank without, like I said, interest, penalties, or early withdrawal fees. So I would say about half of our clients use some portion of their retirement funds to fund their business, and that's perfectly okay. There's multiple companies within the franchising industry that specialize on the financing side that are work with all these different styles of financing, and we'll be happy to get you in contact with them to learn more. So all I want you to know is that there's multiple ways to fund your franchise. It doesn't have to be that you come up with all the cash of it. Quite often you don't. Myth number 5, high return require a high investment. Well, we kind of already went over this. Like I said, there's no automatic correlation between the cost of franchise and the potential return. Myth number 6, industry experience is required. No, typically franchisors, so you end up purchasing a franchise that you've had no experience in, but the franchisor will want you to use their system, and therefore they want to make sure you're competent in management skills and people communication skills. Or maybe the business requires a sales skill. So have you done sales in the past or marketing in the past? They want you to follow their system, and they will train you on how to use their system. So let's say that you're looking at a child education business. They don't want you to be a teacher as a previous background. They want you to be good at working with people. They want you to be having that sense of wanting to help out people. So that's really what they're looking for, is do you have the knowledge and skill sets? Not all franchisors are the same. Some have lots of units, some have few units, some are very well established, some are newer, some have very structured operating systems, some have very flexible systems, some are expensive, some are inexpensive. So this is something that we take into account with our clients too. Some of our clients like newer systems. They like being kind of that initial trailblazer. Some of our clients want tried, true, proven, where the franchisor has already been within the area for many years. Yes, you may not get the best of locations since they've been there for many, many years, that they've been proven. Again, on the flip side of the coin, a lot of our clients say, hey, I like being the trailblazer. I want to get the best of the best territories and locations, so I'm okay being one of the first guys on the block. Or maybe you're right in the middle. Okay, so this is something that we're going to want to consider as well as we start to figure out, hey, what kind of creates your ideal business scenario. So let's switch gears here for a second, and let's imagine, or let's just use a scenario that you want to start looking at businesses. So the question is, where do you start? How do you find that perfect fit for you? Well, you want to separate the function of the business from the function of the business owner. So what do we mean by that? Well, are you going to follow a franchisor system? What's affordable to you? What's the risk level that's accessible to you? What will drive you out of bed in the morning to say, hey, I'm really looking forward to going to my business and running my business. So what do I really enjoy? Identify your financial and lifestyle goals. So the whole reason for doing this in the first place is to help you achieve your goals. So what are they? Quite often you need to look out 5, 10, 20 years from now to figure out, what is it that I want? And what's going to be the best methodology to get me there? Is it a job? Is it business ownership? Okay. But you have to envision what is it that you want. Because like I said, that's the whole reason for doing this. So are you trying to find more challenge, recognition, prestige? Are you trying to build equity for retirement? Are you trying to have more time for family and interests? So these are a lot of the reasons of what we hear from people as to why they're doing this. Building equity for retirement, they know, hey, if I just get a paycheck every day or every other week, I may not be building for retirement quite what I need to build. So when you look at business ownership, not only can you get the income from the business, but you're also building an asset that you could sell in the future. Or, hey, maybe you've been working really, really hard, 5, 6, 7 days a week, very long hours, or maybe you're one of those road warriors that's getting on planes every other week. You just haven't had that time for family and time for your own personal interests. Well, maybe that's something we need to consider and make sure that we look at businesses that allow you that time flexibility. So these are some of the more common things that we hear from our clients as to why they're really considering business ownership. What are your skill sets that you bring to the table? What are you really good at doing? What do you enjoy doing professionally day in and day out? Is it customer service, sales, marketing, financials, operations, and management? And let's make sure we look at franchises that match those skill sets. And then we're going to want you to take a personal franchise assessment. So we have a tool that we have all of our clients take that we call PFA, or Personal Franchise Assessment. It is a link that you'll get from us. We can email you that link, or it's also available on our main website at www.friendnet.com. And it is an assessment that we've been using for many, many, many years, obviously revised it through the years, but it's going to produce about a 12 to 14 page report for both you and us. It's going to look at your background. It's going to look at your skill sets. It's going to look at what you enjoy doing. It's going to look at some of the aspects that you think you'd like to see in the business as far as hours, number of employees, types of employees, atmosphere, type of income that you're looking to derive from the business. And it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to do. It is one of the main tools, like I said, that we use in helping our clients identify the franchise. So this assessment won't identify the specific franchise that you should be looking at, but it'll identify the types of franchise that you should be looking at. So once we get the results, we'll share the results with you, and then we're going to want to sit down with you one-on-one to go through them, review them, make sure it's accurate, it is who you truly are. And then we're going to want to develop a business model. So the business model is basically a recipe for what would the ideal business look like. Again, so how many employees do you want? Is this going to be a full-time, part-time business? What's your budget for starting a business? How do you want to grow the business? Do you want a business where you just kind of grow the four walls of it, or do you want to grow through multiple units? Do you want something that's more business to business, or do you want to work with the general public? Do you want to sell a service? Do you want to sell a product? How do you want to grow it? What are all the different things that you want to find in a business that would be your personal preferences? So all of us want different things in a business. So the analogy I always give to this is, think of yourself going out there to purchase a house, which most people have done. So if you were to go out there and start looking at houses, you probably first sit down and figure out how many bedrooms do you want? What's your budget for buying a house? How many square feet do you want? What school districts do you want to be in? How many car garage do you want? What size of backyard do you want? All kinds of different things. And then you'll probably start looking at houses that match that criteria. And then you'll probably end up purchasing a house that best matches that criteria, that is also the best deal. Well, the same exercise occurs here. It's just for an entity that you've probably never done before. In this case, we're talking about a business. So we'll help you build this business model. And what you'll find is this business model is a living document. So it will change as you start looking at these businesses, because you'll start to learn about yourself in businesses that you may not have known before. So once we have this business model and the assessment, and this is an example of an actual business model here. So this is something that you will get from us after we meet. But once we have those two things, that's when we're able to sit down with you and start identifying specific franchise that you should be taking a look at, okay? And like I said, usually our clients will look at 2, 3, maybe 4 different franchises at any given point in time. So again, you're able to compare and contrast, and obviously you're not going to purchase all the businesses. You have to eliminate some over time. And so we're going to learn as we start eliminating companies and ultimately find the ultimate one that's the best match for you. Obviously, not everybody does this, okay? But when our clients do pull the trigger on a business, it's really, really neat. They did it. They achieved their goal. They took that leap of faith at the end after doing all of their research to achieve their long-term and family goals of what they're trying to achieve. So really the next steps for you is to complete your personal franchise assessment. It is a proprietary profiling tool that we use. It'll help you establish your individual goals, motives, and core competencies. Again, we can send you the link on this assessment tool. It doesn't cost anything to take it. Quite often we have people take it just to take it, just to see what the actual results come out with. But those would be the main next steps. And again, once we get the assessment from you, then we'll sit down with you, go through it, and then we'll help build your business model and then match you up with the particular franchise that you should be taking a look at. And then we're going to coach you through that whole research process that we talked about. There's a few additional resources that we suggest you take advantage of as well. At the very end of the process, you are going to want to have a franchise attorney review the franchise disclosure document and agreement with you. So we will help you with that. We'll get you in contact with the local franchise attorneys. We'll get you in contact with the local accountants that specialize in franchising. Here's a handful of books that we suggest you read too. More Than Just French Fries is an Amazon bestseller that we wrote. The E-Myth has been around for many, many years. In fact, a lot of franchisors even use it as part of their training curriculum. And then Street Smart Franchising is a book that I give to every single one of the clients that I work with, because it's the best book that I have found on franchising, so we'll give you a copy of that. The process for researching franchises is a little bit of a marathon. It usually takes about 2 to 3 months to go through. It takes as long or as short as you want it to take. It really should not take longer than 5 to 6 months. If it does, something's wrong. But on average, I say our typical client takes about 2 to 3 months from the time where we initially sit down with you and review that assessment to the time you sign the franchise agreement. Now, when you actually open the business, totally depends on the type of business or franchise that you're actually purchasing. It does take a little bit of time. So doing this research is very, very crucial. Again, we've been through it thousands of times, so we'll guide you through it. So that is about it. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I hope you learned quite a bit from it. It was designed to help you learn about franchising as a whole. What are the trends? Where's the financing coming from? How to properly research these franchises, and what are all the resources that are available to you. So if you have any questions or if you want to get started, feel free to reach out to me personally. Again, my name is Blair Nickel. My direct cell phone number is area code 760-473-4342. Email address is bnicol, B-N-I-C-O-L, @friendnet.com. So we look forward to working with you. More importantly, we do look forward to hearing from you. And again, I hope you enjoyed this webinar and that it was a good use of your time. In the meantime, enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.